Broken heart. I was shocked the day my son denied me as his mother. Broken heart. Yes, you heard me right. My own flesh and blood, the boy I carried for 9 long months, raised with trembling hands and sleepless nights, looked me in the eye and said he did not know me. First I thought I was dreaming. Maybe my ears betrayed me. But no, it was his voice, cold and sharp, cutting through me like a knife. People were watching, their mouths open, waiting to see what I would do. My legs grew weak and my hands shook. I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me, because nothing in this life had prepared me for that moment. But before I continue, let me pause a little. My name is Margaret, I am 67 years old, and I'm speaking from Georgia, here in the United States. Before I share the rest of my story, I want you, my dear viewers, to do me a favor. Please subscribe, like, and click the notification button, so you don't miss the upcoming chapters of this heartbreaking but important journey. And tell me from which part of the country you are watching from. I would love to know. Now let me take you back to where it all began, long before the day my son denied me as his mother. Life has never been easy for me, but I was the kind of woman who always found a way to smile through the pain. I grew up in a small town in Georgia where we didn't have much, but we had one another. My mother taught me that family was everything. Blood is thicker than water, she would always say, and I carried those words with me into adulthood. When I became a mother, I promised myself that I would give my son, Daniel, the love, care, and opportunities one never had. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I cleaned houses during the day, worked as a cashier at night, and baked bread for neighbors on weekends. I hardly slept, but every time I looked into Daniel's bright little eyes, I knew my sacrifices were worth it. He was a sweet boy growing up, always holding my hand, always asking questions, always saying, "Mom, when I grow up, I'll take care of you." Those words were like honey to my ears. I believed them. I held on to them. But life has a way of testing promises. When Daniel went off to college, everything started to change. First it was small. He would call less, visit less, and sometimes avoid my questions. I thought maybe he was just busy adjusting to his new life. I didn't want to pressure him, so I kept quiet, sending him little care packages, his favorite cookies, socks, and notes reminding him to pray and eat well. But slowly, the distance grew larger, and his voice became colder. One day, I visited his campus unannounced. I remember standing there in the bright sun, holding a basket of food I had prepared. I was so excited to surprise him, but when I saw him walking with some of his friends, something in his eyes changed. He looked embarrassed. "Daniel," called out, waving. He froze. His friends turned to see who I was. And then, this was the moment that shattered me, he shook his head and said, "I don't know her." The basket of food slipped from my hands, crashing to the ground. My heart felt like it had been torn apart. I could hardly breathe. The boy I carried, the boy I loved more than life itself, had denied me in front of strangers. The students laughed awkwardly, whispering among themselves, but all I could hear was my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My knees buckled, and tears blurred my vision. That was the day my son denied me as his mother. But how did we get there? What led to that cruel moment? I will tell you, because this story isn't just about pain. It's about sacrifice, betrayal, and the lessons we must all learn before it is too late. Before that day, there were signs. Small ones. Things I ignored because a mother's love always wants to believe the best in her child. I remember when Daniel first introduced me to his girlfriend, Amanda. She came from a wealthy family, and the moment she shook my hand, I felt her eyes scan me from head to toe. I was just a tired, wrinkled woman in a faded dress, my hands rough from years of scrubbing floors. I smiled warmly, but her smile was thin, polite, and distant. From that day on, I noticed the shift. Daniel stopped visiting home, saying Amanda's family kept him busy. He started dressing differently, speaking differently, and even laughing in ways that didn't feel like my boy anymore. I thought it was just love changing him, as it often does. But little did I know it was the beginning of the biggest heartbreak of my life. And so, dear viewers, the day he denied me was not just one moment. It was the result of many smaller ones, each cutting me little by little until the final blow. But that day, oh that day, when he looked at me with no recognition, when my name turned into stranger, I knew my life had changed forever. What happened after I dropped that basket of food on the ground? Did I run? Did I cry out? Or did I stand there, frozen, as the world closed in on me? Stay with me because what came next was something even more shocking. And that is where the story continues. The basket lay on the ground, its contents scattered, warm bread, apples, and a jar of honey I had saved just for him. People stepped around it, some even stepping on the bread as they passed. But I didn't move. My hands trembled at my sides, my heart pounding so loudly that I could barely hear the noise around me. Daniel turned quickly to his friends, laughing awkwardly. "Some crazy woman," he said, his words cutting through me like knives. They laughed with him, not knowing that I was the woman who had nursed him when he was sick, who had held him through storms, who had given everything for him. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him and shake him, and remind him of who I was. But my voice caught in my throat. The humiliation was too heavy. Tears burned my eyes, and my legs felt like they could no longer carry me. "Daniel," I whispered, but my voice was so soft that only I heard it. At that moment, Amanda appeared, walking gracefully toward the group. She was beautiful, with perfect hair and clothes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She slipped her arm through Daniel's and asked, "Who was that woman?" Daniel's reply will forever be carved into my soul. "No one," he said coldly. "Just some old lady." The world around me spun. My body swayed and I thought I might faint right there on the pavement. No one, after all the years I had poured into his life, after all the sacrifices, he reduced me to no one. I turned slowly, my heart breaking, and walked away. Each step felt heavier than the last. My hands shook so badly that I could barely hold my bag. The wind was cold against my face, but it was nothing compared to the ice in my chest. On my way home, I kept asking myself the same questions. What did I do wrong? Where did I fail? Why would my son deny me? The bus ride felt endless, every bump on the road shaking loose another memory of my boy. His first steps, his laughter, his promises. When I finally reached my small house, I sank into the chair by the window and cried until my eyes were swollen shut. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. But life didn't stop there. The days that followed were filled with whispers from neighbors who had heard what happened. "Poor Margaret," they said. "Her own son denied her." Their pity felt like salt on my wounds. Still, I tried to make sense of it all. Maybe he was just ashamed of my simple clothes. Maybe Amanda had pressured him. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't his true self speaking. I clung to hope because hope was the only thing keeping me alive. 1 week later, I decided to try again. I baked his favorite pie, apple cinnamon, the kind he used to beg for as a child, and I went to his apartment. My hands trembled as I knocked on the door. When it opened, Daniel stood there, shocked to see me. For a moment, I thought I saw my boy again, his eyes softening just slightly. But then Amanda appeared behind him, crossing her arms and narrowing her eyes at me. "Daniel, who is this woman again?" she asked coldly. This time, Daniel hesitated. My heart leapt with fragile hope, waiting for him to say the words, "She's my mother." But instead he said, "She's just someone I used to know." Those words pierced deeper than any knife. My knees grew weak, and I held on to the doorframe for support. Amanda smirked and pulled him back. "Well, tell her not to come around here again. She makes you look bad." Daniel didn't defend me. He didn't fight for me. He simply nodded, closed the door, and left me standing in the hallway with the pie still warm in my hands. I wanted to collapse. I wanted to scream at the heavens. But instead, I walked down those stairs slowly, pie in hand, tears running down my face. The world around me blurred, but inside, a fire started to grow. That was the night I made a decision. If Daniel could deny me so easily, then something, or someone, was poisoning his heart, and I was going to find out what it was. I didn't know it then, but the journey ahead would be filled with more pain, more betrayal, and secrets that would shake me to my core. Because what I uncovered later was far worse than a simple denial. It was something that would change everything I thought I knew about my son, and it all began with that door closing in my face. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Daniel's voice echoing in my head. "She's just someone I used to know." Over and over again, like a cruel drumbeat, it haunted me. I sat by the window watching the moon drift across the sky, clutching the untouched pie in my lap. By morning the crust had grown cold and soggy, just like my heart. I couldn't keep living like this. A mother can't survive being treated like a stranger by her own child. I needed answers. I needed to know why my son had turned against me. The next day I put on my best dress, the blue one with tiny white flowers. It was old, but it was the nicest thing I owned. I tied my hair back, pressed my lips together, and walked toward the campus where Daniel spent most of his time. I told myself I wasn't going to confront him, not yet. I just wanted to see, to listen, to understand. When I got there, I stayed in the shadows near the library steps. Students hurried past me, laughing, carrying books, some staring at me curiously. I pretended to be waiting for someone, clutching my purse tight. Then I saw him. My Daniel. He walked out of the library, dressed sharply, looking every bit like a young man who belonged in the world of success and money. But he wasn't alone. Amanda was there, holding his arm, her laughter like silver bells that drew people's attention. She leaned close, whispering in his ear, and Daniel smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. That smile wasn't mine anymore. I followed them quietly as they walked across campus. They stopped near a bench, where Amanda pulled out her phone. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough of their conversation. "Your mother is embarrassing," she said. "She doesn't fit in. People will talk if they know she's really your mom. Do you want that kind of shame? My parents would never accept her." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He didn't say no. He didn't defend me. Instead, he whispered, "I'll handle it." My chest tightened. Amanda was poisoning him against me, turning his love into shame. I wanted to step out, to shout, "I am not an embarrassment. I am your mother." But fear kept me hidden. I wasn't ready to face him in front of her again. As they walked away, I sat on that cold bench fighting tears. It was becoming clear. My son was caught in a web trapped between love and pride. But the question remained, how far was he willing to go to erase me from his life? That evening, something unexpected happened. There was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Mrs. Collins, my neighbor from across the street. She was holding a small grocery bag. "I thought you might need this," she said kindly. I heard what happened. Her words cut me, but her kindness soothed me. I invited her in, and for the first time I poured my heart out. I told her about Daniel, about Amanda, about the denial that had shattered me. Mrs. Collins listened quietly, then said something I will never forget. "Margaret, sometimes children forget the hands that raised them when they start chasing the world. But don't lose yourself. You are still his mother, whether he accepts it or not. And sometimes, truth has a way of revealing itself in the darkest moments." Her words gave me a strange kind of strength. I decided I wouldn't give up. Not yet. I was going to fight for my son, even if it meant facing humiliation again. But I didn't realize the fight would come sooner than I thought. A week later, Daniel invited me to a dinner at Amanda's parents' house. My heart leapt. Maybe this was my chance, my moment to prove to him, to her, to everyone, that I was worthy of being his mother. I cooked all day, preparing a small dish to bring, even though I knew their table would be full of fancy foods. When I arrived at their grand house, the sight nearly took my breath away. Chandeliers sparkled, fine china lined the table, and wealthy guests filled the room with chatter. I felt like a small fish in an ocean of sharks. Amanda's parents greeted me with stiff smiles. Amanda herself looked me up and down, clearly unimpressed. Daniel, though, avoided my eyes, almost as if ashamed that I had come. Dinner began, and I sat quietly, trying to keep my hands steady as I lifted the silverware. But then, one of the guests asked the question that would change everything. "Daniel," the man said, "you've told us so much about Amanda's family. But what about your own parents? Who is this lovely lady?" All eyes turned to Daniel. My heart pounded. This was it, the moment of truth. He would either claim me as his mother or deny me once more. Daniel froze. I saw the war in his eyes. He glanced at Amanda, who gave him a sharp, warning look. And then, "My mother passed away when I was young," he said softly. "This woman is just a family friend." The words struck me like lightning. I gasped, nearly dropping my fork. The room went silent. Amanda smiled smugly, her parents nodding with approval. But inside, my soul was collapsing. Passed away? A family friend? He had killed me off in front of strangers, burying me alive while I sat right there at the table. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to demand the truth. But all I could do was sit frozen, my tears slipping silently down my cheeks as laughter and conversation slowly resumed around me. That was the night I realized something far darker was happening. This wasn't just shame. This was rejection. Complete rejection. And it was only the beginning of my nightmare. Because what happened after that dinner was even worse. The night of that dinner burned itself into my memory like fire on dry wood. After Daniel's words, "My mother passed away when I was young." I sat there in silence, my heart pounding so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. I stared at him, searching his face for some sign of regret, some flicker of guilt, but there was nothing. He lifted his glass and smiled at the guests as though he hadn't just buried me alive in front of them. Amanda's parents nodded approvingly, clearly satisfied. "That explains a lot," her mother said softly, almost in relief, as if the thought of me being his real mother was a stain that had now been wiped away. I felt small like a shadow in that glittering room. My hands trembled under the table, and my eyes blurred with tears I tried to hold back. I wanted to get up and leave, but my legs refused to move. My pride, what little I had left, kept me glued to that chair. When dinner finally ended, I tried to slip away quietly, but Amanda stopped me at the door. Her smile was cold, her words sharper than glass. "You shouldn't have come tonight," she whispered. "Daniel doesn't need people like you dragging him down. Do him a favor, stay away." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My throat burned, and my chest ached, but I forced myself to look into her eyes. "I am his mother," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "Nothing you say will change that." Amanda's smile widened cruelly. "Not to him. Not anymore." I turned and walked out into the cold night air, my heart in pieces. The drive home was a blur. I barely remember how I got there. All I know is that the moment I stepped into my small house, I collapsed onto the floor and wept like a child. That was the lowest moment of my life. My son had denied me once, but to kill me off with lies, to erase me from his story completely, it was a wound deeper than I could bear. But the night wasn't over yet. Hours later, close to midnight, there was a knock on my door. My heart skipped. Could it be Daniel? Could he have come to apologize? I rushed to the door, hope surging in me for the first time all day. When I opened it, Daniel was standing there, his face pale, his jaw tight. For a brief second, I saw my little boy again, the one who used to run to me after school, the one who promised to take care of me. My lips trembled as I whispered, "Daniel." But then he spoke, and his words shattered that fragile hope. "Mom," he said in a low, angry voice, "why did you come tonight? Why do you keep showing up where you're not wanted?" I stepped back, stunned. "Not wanted? Daniel, I am your mother. How could you say those things about me in front of them? How could you erase me like I'm nothing?" His eyes hardened. "You don't understand, Mom. Amanda's family is important. They wouldn't accept you. If they know who you really are, it will ruin everything for me. Do you want that?" Tears spilled down my cheeks. "Ruin everything? Daniel, I gave you everything I had. I sacrificed my youth, my health, my dreams, all for you. And now you're ashamed of me." He looked away, his silence louder than any answer. "Daniel," I whispered, my voice breaking, "is that what I am to you? Shame?" He didn't respond. He just shook his head, turned and walked away, leaving me standing at the doorway with my heart in pieces. But before he reached the gate, he stopped and said something that made my knees buckle. "Don't come around me again. Please. If you love me, you'll stay away." I froze. His figure disappeared into the darkness, but his words stayed, echoing in my chest. If I love him, I'll stay away? Was that love, to erase myself from his life so he could live comfortably in lies? I sank to the floor, sobbing until dawn. The boy I had raised, the boy I had lived for, was gone. And in his place stood a stranger I no longer recognized. But something inside me refused to give up. I couldn't stay away. Not because I was stubborn, but because deep down, I felt that Amanda and her family were controlling him, twisting him, making him forget who he really was. And I was right, because only a few days later, I stumbled upon something that revealed the truth. And it was far more dangerous, far more heartbreaking than I ever imagined. Something that made me realize Amanda wasn't just a girl pulling my son away. She had a secret. One that would destroy everything if it ever came to light. And I was about to uncover it. 3 days passed after that dreadful night. Each one heavier than the last. I tried to keep myself busy, watering the little garden behind my house, mending old clothes, baking bread I couldn't bring myself to eat. But no matter what I did, Daniel's words kept echoing in my mind. If you love me, you'll stay away. Stay away? From my own child? From the boy I carried through sickness and hunger? The boy I prayed over when he had fevers that nearly took his life? No. A mother's love doesn't just vanish because she's told to stay away. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and I needed to find out what it was. That evening, I decided to take a walk, hoping the cool Georgia air might clear my head. As I strolled past the town square, I heard 2 young women whispering behind me. Did you hear about Amanda? One said. Yes, the other replied. But keep your voice down. If Daniel finds out, it'll ruin everything for him. I froze. My heart leapt into my throat. Amanda. They were talking about her. I slowed my steps, pretending to look at the flowers on display in a shop window while straining my ears. They say she's hiding something big, the first girl whispered. Something from her past. The second girl nodded. Exactly. That's why her parents are so desperate to protect her image. They want her to marry Daniel because he looks good next to her. But if the truth comes out... Their voices faded as they walked away, but those few words were enough. Amanda had a secret. A dark one. And her family was covering it up. My heart raced as I hurried home. My mind spinning. Could this be why Daniel was acting so strange? Could Amanda be holding something over him? Or worse, was she using him to cover up her own shame? That night, I barely slept. My old bones ached, but my determination burned like fire. I had to know the truth. The next morning, I went to the college again. This time, I wasn't there to see Daniel. I was there to watch Amanda. I waited near the cafeteria, sitting quietly with a cup of coffee that grew cold in my hands. Hours passed before Amanda appeared, her heels clicking on the pavement, her phone pressed to her ear. I couldn't hear everything she said, but one line reached me loud and clear. No one can ever know about that. If it gets out, my parents will disown me. My heart nearly stopped. What was that? I followed her carefully as she walked across campus. She entered a small building where the student records were kept. I hesitated at the door but pressed my ear to the wall. Her voice drifted out, sharp and demanding. You promised me those files would stay sealed. If anyone finds out, especially Daniel, it's over. Files? Sealed files? I stepped back quickly before she came out, hiding behind a pillar as she stormed away. My mind was spinning. Amanda had sealed records, something she desperately didn't want Daniel to know. I knew I had to dig deeper. Later that evening, I paid a visit to an old friend who worked at the university. Mr. Harris, the librarian, had known me for years. He used to smile at little Daniel when I brought him to story time. When I explained what I needed, his face grew serious. Margaret, you're asking me to do something risky. But you're a mother. And I can see the pain in your eyes. I'll help. Hours later, Mr. Harris handed me a folder. My hand shook as I opened it. And there it was. The truth. Amanda had been expelled from her previous college for fraud. She had been caught forging financial documents in her father's name. To keep the scandal hidden, her parents had paid to bury the records and transfer her to Daniel's school under a clean slate. I gasped, my heart pounding. Fraud. Lies. Deception. And now she was weaving those lies into my son's life, convincing him to erase me while she erased her own past. Tears filled my eyes, not just from pain but from anger. My son had denied me, not because he truly hated me, but because he was caught in a trap spun by Amanda and her powerful family. But what could I do? If I exposed her, would Daniel believe me? Or would he push me away forever? I sat in the dark that night, the folder on my lap, the weight of truth heavy in my hands. One thing was certain, the time for silence was over. I had sacrificed too much, endured too much, to let my son be destroyed by lies. But I didn't know then that exposing Amanda's secret would lead to a confrontation so explosive. It would tear our family apart even more. And it all began with the folder of secrets I now held in my trembling hands. The folder sat on my table like a loaded gun. Every time I walked past it, I felt its weight pressing against my chest, whispering that I held the key to my son's future, and possibly to his destruction. For 2 days I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I paced the floor like a restless spirit, torn between my love for Daniel and my duty as his mother. If I revealed Amanda's secret, I risked losing him forever. But if I stayed silent, I would watch him sink deeper into a life built on lies. Finally, the decision was made for me. Amanda's parents invited me, yes, me, to another family dinner. I almost refused, still raw from the last humiliation. But something in my gut told me this was my chance. My chance to finally speak the truth, no matter the cost. That evening, I put on my same blue dress, ironed as neatly as my trembling hands would allow. As I looked in the mirror, I whispered to myself, "Margaret, tonight you stand not just as a mother, but as the truth." When I arrived at their mansion, the lights sparkled as before, the tables groaned with food, and laughter filled the room. Amanda was radiant, clinging to Daniel's arm like she owned him. Her parents welcomed me stiffly, clearly expecting me to sit quietly and smile. But I wasn't here to be quiet. Dinner passed slowly, each course dragging as my heart pounded louder and louder. I watched Daniel laugh with Amanda, watched Amanda's smug smile, and I knew I couldn't keep silent another minute. Halfway through the meal, Amanda's father raised his glass. "To family," he said warmly, "and to the bright future Amanda and Daniel will share together." The guests cheered. Glasses clinked. And in that moment I rose from my chair. "Before we toast to the future," I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled, "perhaps we should speak of the past." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Amanda's smile faltered. Daniel frowned. "What are you talking about?" Amanda asked sharply, her voice just a little too high. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. My hand shook, but I held it high for all to see. "I'm talking about the truth," I said. "The truth about Amanda. The truth she doesn't want Daniel, or anyone here, to know." Gasps rippled around the table. Amanda's face went pale. "Don't listen to her," she snapped. "She's just a bitter old woman who doesn't know what she's saying." But I opened the folder, my voice rising. Amanda was expelled from her previous college for fraud. She forged financial documents in her father's name, and her parents covered it up, burying the truth so she could start fresh. But lies don't stay buried forever. The room exploded into chaos. Guests murmured. Amanda's parents shot to their feet, their faces red with rage. Amanda herself lunged toward me, trying to snatch the folder from my hands. "You're lying," she screamed. "You have no proof." I clutched the folder to my chest. "The proof is right here. You may fool others, Amanda, but you will not destroy my son with your lies." Daniel stood frozen, his face pale as a ghost. His eyes darted between me, Amanda, and the folder. "Is this true?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Amanda stammered, her mask cracking for the first time. "Daniel, I can explain." "Answer me," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. The entire room went silent. Amanda's silence was her answer. Daniel turned slowly toward me. His eyes filled with shock, confusion, and something else. Something I hadn't seen in years. Recognition. But before he could speak, Amanda's father roared. "How dare you humiliate our daughter in front of our guests? You are nothing but trash, Margaret. Trash." The word hit me like a slap. My hands trembled, but I lifted my chin. I may be poor, I may have calloused hands and second-hand clothes, but I am not trash. I am a mother. And I will never stand by while lies destroy my son. The room erupted again, people shouting, chairs scraping. Daniel grabbed Amanda's arm as she tried to storm out. "You lied to me," he said through clenched teeth. "You used me." Amanda yanked away, her face twisted with fury. "I did it for us. For our future." Daniel's voice broke. "No, Amanda. You did it for yourself." And then, in front of everyone, he let go of her arm and walked toward me. For a moment, hope flickered in my chest. Maybe, just maybe, my son was finally coming back to me. But just as he reached me, Amanda's father shouted something that made Daniel stop in his tracks. "If you choose her, he barked, pointing a trembling finger at me. You lose everything. The money. The connections. The life we promised you. Choose wisely, Daniel. The room went dead silent. All eyes were on him. His future hung in the balance. And I, standing there with tears in my eyes, realized I was about to learn whether my son valued truth or the world's lies. The air in that dining room was so thick you could almost slice it with a knife. Everyone waited, forks frozen midair, wine glasses untouched, as Daniel stood between two worlds. On one side, Amanda and her wealthy family, their faces twisted with rage but dangling promises of money, power, and a glittering future. On the other side, me. His mother, trembling, poor, humiliated, but holding nothing but the truth and the love that had raised him from cradle to manhood. I could see the storm raging in his eyes. His jaw clenched. His fists tightened. For a moment I thought he would step toward me, claim me, embrace me, and finally break free of the lies. But then Amanda's father's words echoed like poison in the air. If you choose her, you lose everything. Daniel's lips parted. His voice shook as he said, I can't lose this. I've worked too hard. I'm sorry, Mom. The world tilted beneath me. My breath caught in my throat. Sorry, I whispered. He looked at me, his eyes filled with something that looked almost like guilt, but not enough to save me. You don't understand, he said. I've built a life here. I can't throw it away. Maybe you should have stayed away like I asked. My knees went weak. The folder in my hand slipped, papers scattering across the polished floor like fallen leaves. Amanda smirked triumphantly, rushing to Daniel's side and clutching his arm as though she had won a prize. Gasps and murmurs rippled around the room. Amanda's mother leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smile. Amanda's father poured himself another drink, the battle already won in his eyes. But inside me a fire roared. I took a shaky step forward, my tears drying into resolve. Daniel, listen to me, I said, my voice cracking yet strong. Money can vanish. Power fades. Beauty withers. But a mother's love, my love for you, is the one thing in this world that never dies. Do not trade your soul for their approval. He looked down, refusing to meet my eyes. Amanda squeezed his hand tighter, whispering something in his ear. I saw him close his eyes, saw the war tearing him apart. Finally, he opened them again. And the words that came out of his mouth shattered the last piece of my heart. Leave, Mom. Please. Don't ever come back. The room spun. Gasps filled the air. I staggered back, clutching my chest as though I could hold the pieces of my broken heart together. For a long moment I just stared at him, the boy I had raised, the boy I had prayed for. Now a man who denied me not once, not twice, but 3 times. Slowly I bent down, gathered the scattered papers with trembling hands, and pressed them to my chest. Without another word, I turned and walked out of that glittering house, my footsteps echoing in the cold night. Outside, the air bit at my skin, but I didn't feel it. My body was numb. I walked aimlessly down the quiet street, tears blurring the streetlights until they looked like stars falling from the sky. When I reached home, I collapsed by the door, sobbing into my hands. The words echoed in my ears again and again. Leave, Mom. Don't ever come back. I thought it was the end. I thought I had lost my son forever. But life has a cruel way of twisting paths. Because just when I was ready to give up, a knock came at my door the very next morning. And when I opened it, standing there was not Daniel. It was Amanda. Her face was pale, her eyes red with tears, her hands shaking as she clutched something behind her back. What do you want? I asked bitterly, my voice rough from a night of crying. She stepped forward, her lips trembling. Mrs. Margaret, I need your help. Please. I froze, my anger colliding with confusion. Amanda, my enemy, the girl who had stolen my son's heart and turned him against me, was now begging me for help. And what she revealed next was a truth so dark, so dangerous, that it made even her fraud look like a child's game. A truth that would drag me deeper into a storm I never saw coming. I stood frozen at the doorway, staring at Amanda as if my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. The very girl who had stolen my son's loyalty, who had twisted him until he denied me as his mother, was now trembling like a leaf in the wind, begging for my help. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Please, Mrs. Margaret, let me in. I can't go anywhere else." Every fiber in me screamed to slam the door, to tell her she had taken enough from me, and that she should choke on her lies alone. But something in her eyes stopped me. It wasn't pride. It wasn't smugness. It was fear. Raw, desperate fear. Slowly, I opened the door wider. She stepped inside, clutching a folded envelope in her hands as though it contained her very soul. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. She paced the small living room, so out of place among my worn furniture and faded curtains. Finally, she turned, her voice breaking. "They're going to destroy me," she whispered. "And Daniel too. If this gets out." I crossed my arms, forcing steel into my voice even as my heart pounded. "You've already destroyed me, Amanda. You turned my son against me. Why should I lift a finger for you now?" Tears spilled down her cheeks, streaking her perfect makeup. She pressed the envelope into my hands. "Because what I'm about to tell you is bigger than me, bigger than all of us." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were several documents, police reports, witness statements, and a court summons. My breath caught in my throat. Fraud wasn't Amanda's only sin. 3 years ago, before she ever met Daniel, she had been involved in a hit-and-run accident. Late one night, driving recklessly after a party, she had struck a young man on a bicycle. Instead of stopping, she fled the scene. The boy survived, but his leg was shattered, leaving him with a permanent limp. The case had been buried. Her parents had paid off witnesses, silenced the police with bribes, and sealed the records. But now, someone had reopened it. Amanda collapsed onto my couch, sobbing. "They found out. Someone knows. They've been sending me letters, threatening to expose everything unless we pay. My parents said it would ruin their reputation. And if Daniel stays with me, it will ruin him too." I stared at her, my chest heaving. My mind flashed with images. Daniel smiling at her, clinging to her hand, denying me just to please her. All this time, he thought he was rising into a world of wealth and success, but in reality, he was sinking into a pit of lies and crime. Amanda grabbed my hand suddenly, her nails digging into my skin. "You have to believe me. I didn't mean for it to happen." I panicked. "But if Daniel finds out the truth, he'll leave me. He'll hate me. And if the world finds out, his life will be over too." I yanked my hand away, fury burning through me. "And you expect me to protect you? After everything you've done? After you turned my son's heart against me?" Her sobs grew harder. "I know I don't deserve it. I know. But you're the only person who can reach him. If he hears this from anyone else, he'll never forgive me. Please, Mrs. Margaret. Please help me." For the first time in years, Amanda wasn't the polished, perfect woman Daniel admired. She was broken, desperate, human. I sat in silence, my mind torn in two. On one hand, she was the root of my suffering. On the other, the truth she carried could destroy Daniel's future. And if I stayed silent, he might go down with her when the secret exploded. Finally, I spoke, my voice heavy with pain. "If I help you, Amanda, it won't be for your sake. It will be for my son. Because even if he denies me, even if he calls me a stranger, I will not stand by and watch his life burn." Amanda wiped her tears, nodding furiously. Thank you. You won't regret this." But deep down, I knew regret was already at my door. Because protecting Daniel now meant tying myself to a secret so dark, it could swallow me whole. And as fate would have it, Daniel walked into the storm sooner than either of us expected. Because that very night, as Amanda hid trembling in my home, Daniel came knocking on my door. And what he saw when I opened it changed everything. The knock on my door rattled through the small house like thunder. Amanda froze where she sat on my couch, her eyes wide, her face pale. For a heartbeat, we both stared at each other, neither daring to breathe. Then came his voice. "Mom? It's me. Open up." "Daniel." Amanda shot up to her feet, panic flashing across her face. "Oh God, he can't see me here. If he knows I came to you." But it was too late. My hands trembled as I opened the door, and there he stood, my son, tall, handsome, dressed in a crisp suit. For a fleeting second my heart swelled. Like the little boy I once cradled was finally home again. But the moment his eyes moved past me and landed on Amanda, That warmth turned to ice. His jaw tightened. His brows furrowed. "Amanda," he said sharply. "What are you doing here?" Amanda's lip quivered. She opened her mouth but no words came. Her perfect composure was gone, stripped bare. She looked at him like a child caught stealing. Daniel turned to me, anger flashing in his eyes. "Mom, what is this? Why is she here? Did you two plan something?" I swallowed hard, my voice unsteady. "Daniel, listen. She came to me because she's in trouble. She needed someone to talk to. Someone she could trust." His eyes narrowed, disbelief twisting his face. "Trust? With you? After everything? Amanda, you told me you hated her. Said she only wanted to tear us apart." Amanda burst into tears, her mask finally shattering. She rushed toward him, grabbing his arm. "Daniel, please. Elid. I didn't hate her. I was scared. I didn't want her to ruin us. But now," her sobs shook her shoulders, "now everything's falling apart. And I don't know what to do." Daniel looked from her to me, confusion warring with anger. "What are you talking about? Falling apart? Amanda, what aren't you telling me?" The room spun with tension. My chest heaved as I clutched the envelope tighter in my hands. The truth was burning inside me, screaming to come out, yet I knew if I said the wrong word, I could lose him forever. Amanda shook her head furiously, her eyes pleading with me, begging me not to reveal her secret. Daniel turned back to me, his voice rising. "Mom, what's going on? Tell me right now." My lips parted. I felt the truth clawing its way up my throat. My son deserved to know who he was standing beside, what kind of life he was being dragged into. But as I looked at Amanda, pale and broken, and then at Daniel, furious and lost, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever I said next would decide whether I got my son back, or lost him forever. The room fell silent, the weight of 1,000 unsaid words pressing down on me. And just as I was about to speak, a loud crash shattered the night. The living room window burst open, glass scattering across the floor. A brick landed at our feet, wrapped in a piece of paper. Amanda screamed. Daniel pulled her close instinctively. My heart nearly stopped as I bent down, unwrapping the note. For words were scrawled in thick black ink. "We know the truth." The note trembled in my hands as I read those 4 words again and again. "We know the truth." Amanda's sobs filled the room, high-pitched and broken. Daniel snatched the paper from me, his face darkening as he read it. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice sharp, urgent. "Amanda, what truth? Tell me right now." Amanda backed away from him, her hands shaking violently. I can't. Daniel, please, you have to trust me." "Trust you?" His voice cracked like a whip. "I gave you everything. I denied my own mother for you. And now people are throwing bricks through windows with threats? Tell me the truth, Amanda, before I walk out that door for good." She collapsed to the floor, clutching her chest as if the weight of her secrets was finally crushing her. Her words came out in gasps. "I didn't mean to, it was an accident. Years ago. A boy on a bike. I hit him. I ran. My parents covered it up. I thought it was gone forever, but now someone found out." The room fell silent. Daniel staggered back as if her confession had physically struck him. His face drained of color. You what?" His voice was hoarse. "Amanda, tell me you're lying." She shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I wish I was." "Daniel," I panicked. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. My parents, they made it disappear. But now it's back, and if this comes out, we're finished." "You're finished." Daniel's chest heaved, his fists clenching and unclenching. He turned to me then, his eyes blazing with betrayal and pain. "Did you know?" I hesitated, guilt flooding me. "She came to me last night, begging. I wasn't going to hide it from you, Daniel. But I..." "You what?" His voice cracked. "You were going to keep it from me too?" Tears stung my eyes. "I was trying to protect you. Even after everything, you're still my son. I couldn't just let you walk blind into this." Amanda crawled toward him, clutching at his legs. "Please, Daniel. Don't leave me. We can fix this. My parents will take care of it again just like before. You don't have to lose anything." Daniel shook her off violently, his face twisted with disgust. "Fix it? By lying? By hiding? My God, Amanda, you destroyed that boy's life and walked away like nothing happened. And you wanted me to build a future on that. Amanda wailed, collapsing into herself. Daniel paced the room like a man trapped in a burning building. No exit in sight. His hands tangled in his hair, his breaths coming sharp and shallow. Then suddenly he stopped and turned to me. "Mom," he whispered, his voice cracking for the first time in years. "What do I do?" The question pierced my heart. For the first time since he denied me, he was looking to me. Not as a stranger, not as a burden, but as his mother. I stepped forward, laying a trembling hand on his arm. "The truth, Daniel. It's the only way. Lies will rot everything you've built. But truth, as painful as it is, can set you free." He closed his eyes, his whole body trembling. "If I tell the truth, I lose everything." "No," I said softly, tears sliding down my cheeks. "If you keep hiding it, then you lose everything." For a long moment silence hung heavy. Then suddenly a loud knock rattled the door again, hard, urgent, like fists pounding with rage. Daniel froze. Amanda shrieked and buried her face in her hands. I turned to the door, my stomach twisting with dread. Whoever was out there, they weren't just sending notes anymore. They had come in person. And what happened when I opened that door would change the course of our lives forever. The pounding on the door rattled the whole house. Each thud was heavier than the last, as though the wood itself might splinter and give way. Amanda was curled up on the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Daniel stood frozen, his face pale, his fists clenched. I moved toward the door slowly, my legs trembling under me. "Who is it?" I called, my voice shaking. A deep male voice answered. "Open up, Margaret. We need to talk about your guest." My heart skipped a beat. They knew Amanda was here. Before I could even respond, Daniel rushed forward and yanked the door open. 3 men stood there, dressed in dark suits, their faces hard and expressionless. Behind them, a sleek black car idled on the curb. These weren't ordinary thugs. They were professionals. The tallest one stepped inside without waiting for permission. His cold eyes swept across the room, landing on Amanda cowering in the corner. "There she is," he said flatly. Amanda let out a sharp cry, clutching her knees tighter. Daniel stepped in front of her instinctively. "Who are you? What do you want?" The man pulled a folded paper from his jacket and tossed it onto the table. It was another letter, but this one was longer. My hands trembled as I picked it up and read aloud. "Amanda Cole, your sins can no longer be buried. Pay what you owe, or the world will know the truth." At the bottom was a demand, $200,000. And a deadline, 3 days. Amanda wailed, her voice breaking. "I don't have that kind of money. I can't." The man's cold gaze shifted to her. "Then maybe your fiancé will cover it. Or maybe your mother-in-law here. But someone pays, or the story goes to the press, the police, and the boy you crippled." Daniel's face twisted in shock and rage. "You're extorting us." The man smirked. "Call it what you like. But we're giving you a choice. Pay, or lose everything. We'll be back in 3 days. With that, the men turned and left as silently as they had come, their car roaring off into the night. The room was suffocatingly quiet after they were gone. Amanda's sobs echoed like a broken clock. Daniel pressed his hands against his face, pacing like a man at the edge of madness. I finally spoke, my voice low but steady. "Daniel, do you see now? Lies never stay buried. They rot. They surface. And now this rot is in your home." Amanda crawled to him, grabbing at his legs again. "Please, Daniel, don't leave me. Don't let them ruin us. You have to help me." He shook her off, his eyes blazing with fury and despair. "Help you? Amanda, you destroyed a boy's life, then dragged me and my family into your lies. And now you expect me to throw money at criminals to keep your secret?" She reached for him again, screaming, "Because I love you." But Daniel's voice thundered back, raw and sharp. "No, you loved yourself. You loved your power, your image, your lies. And you made me betray the only person who's ever truly loved me." His words hit me like a bolt of lightning. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My son who denied me, who broke my heart, was finally seeing the truth. He turned toward me then, tears burning in his eyes. "Mom, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I reached out, trembling, my tears flowing freely. It's never too late, Daniel. Never. Amanda screamed in fury, her voice hoarse. No. You can't choose her over me. If you walk away now, everything we built is gone. Daniel looked at her, then back at me. His chest heaved as he made the choice that would define his future. But before he could speak, the sound of shattering glass erupted behind us. The men weren't gone. They had come back, and this time they weren't knocking. The sound of shattering glass tore through the house like a gunshot. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. The window in the back room had exploded inward, shards raining across the floor. Heavy footsteps followed. The men were inside. Amanda shrieked, scrambling behind the couch like a trapped animal. Daniel shoved me behind him, his body tense, ready to fight if he had to. Two of the suited men stepped into the living room, their cold eyes sweeping the space. The tallest one, the leader, smirked as if this was all a game. We said 3 days. But it seems you don't take us seriously. Daniel's fists clenched. Get out of my mother's house. The man ignored him, his gaze locking on Amanda. 200,000. Tonight. Or the world hears everything by morning. Amanda's face was ghostly pale. She shook her head furiously, sobbing. I don't have it. I told you I can't. The man stepped closer, his shadow looming over her. Then maybe we take something else. His eyes darted to Daniel. Or someone else. Before Daniel could move, rage erupted inside me. I stepped forward, my voice shaking but fierce. No. You've taken enough from this family. If you want the truth out, then let it out. My son will not live chained to your blackmail. The room went silent. Amanda's scream pierced the air. No. Don't say that. If the truth comes out, I lose everything. I turned to her, my voice cutting like steel. You lost everything the moment you chose lies over life. Daniel's chest heaved, his eyes blazing as he turned toward the men. You want to threaten us? Fine. Do it. But I won't give you a single dime. If you want to expose her, then expose her. At least then I'll know where I stand. The leader sneered, clearly not expecting defiance. He leaned closer to Daniel, his voice low and menacing. You're making a mistake, boy. Once this truth is out, your career, your name, your future, it all burns. Daniel didn't flinch. Better to burn with the truth than rot in lies. The man's jaw tightened. For a moment I thought he would lash out. But then he chuckled darkly and motioned to his men. Fine. We'll let the world decide. With that, they turned and disappeared through the shattered window as quickly as they'd come, their car roaring into the night. Silence swallowed the house, broken only by Amanda's wailing. She crawled toward Daniel, clutching at his legs desperately. You fool. Do you know what you've done? Our life is over. Daniel yanked his leg free, his face cold. Our life was built on lies. It was never real. Amanda's scream was raw, feral. She collapsed to the floor, pounding her fists against it, her sobs shaking the room. Daniel turned to me then, his face breaking. Mom! His voice cracked, and before I could speak, he pulled me into his arms. For the first time in years my son held me. Not with shame, not with distance, but with the desperate grip of a child returning home. I was so blind, he whispered, his tears wetting my shoulder. I threw you away for this. For lies. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I cupped his face in my trembling hands. You'll always deserve my forgiveness, Daniel. You're my son. Nothing can change that. But even as we embraced, I knew the storm wasn't over. The men would keep their word. The truth would spread like wildfire. Amanda's sins would become headlines. And with them, Daniel's name would be dragged through the mud. Our battle wasn't against Amanda anymore. It was against the world. And when the sun rose the next morning, the headlines proved it. Socialite Amanda Cole linked to hit-and-run cover-up. Fiancé of accused socialite denied his own mother. Family secrets exposed. Lies, betrayal, and blackmail. The world had found out. And our lives would never be the same. By sunrise, the world had turned upside down. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Neighbors whispered outside my house. Reporters stood on the sidewalk, cameras flashing whenever the curtains shifted. The headlines screamed from every television, every radio, every phone screen. Amanda Cole's name was everywhere, branded as a criminal, a liar, a fraud. And Daniel's name was right beside hers, dragged through the mud for choosing her over his own mother. I stood at the window, my heart heavy as I watched the chaos unfold outside. Reporters shouted questions at every passing car. Some held up pictures of Daniel, others of Amanda, their voices cutting through the morning air. Daniel, do you regret denying your mother? Amanda, did you cover up the hit and run? Mrs. Margaret, how does it feel to be rejected by your own son? Each question was a dagger twisting deeper. Inside, Daniel sat at the edge of my couch, his face buried in his hands. The strong, proud man who once walked into that mansion now looked like a boy lost at sea, drowning in shame. Amanda sat on the floor across from him, her makeup smeared, her eyes red, still begging, still pleading. Daniel, we can fix this, she cried, crawling toward him. My parents will hire the best lawyers. We'll silence the press, just like before. We can make this go away, together. Daniel lifted his head slowly, his eyes bloodshot, his voice raw. Make it go away. Amanda, don't you see? It's over. You can't bury the truth anymore. Not with money. Not with lies. It's done. Amanda's face twisted with desperation. She lunged at him, clutching his arm. No. You can't leave me. You're all I have left. If you walk away, I'll be destroyed. He tore his arm free, his voice thundering through the room. You destroyed yourself, Amanda. And you almost destroyed me. But I won't let you take my mother down with you. Her scream was sharp, furious. She collapsed back against the wall, sobbing uncontrollably. Daniel turned to me then, his eyes softening, his voice breaking. Mom, I don't know how to face the world now. They're all calling me a traitor, a fool, a man who denied his own blood. I don't deserve forgiveness. I knelt beside him, taking his hands in mine. Daniel, listen to me. The world will always have something to say. They build you up and then they tear you down. But family, true family, is what stands when the world walks away. You fell, yes. But you've come back. That's what matters. Tears rolled down his cheeks. For the first time, he didn't hide them. He leaned forward and rested his forehead against mine, whispering, I want to make it right. Tell me how, Mom. Please. Tell me how to fix this. I took a deep breath, my heart steady now. We face the truth together. No more lies. No more hiding. You speak publicly. You tell them you were blinded by love, but you found your way back. You stand by the truth, even if it costs you everything. That's how you take your life back. Daniel swallowed hard, nodding slowly. I'll do it. I'll stand beside you. Amanda's voice cut through the room, sharp and desperate. Daniel, if you do this, you're finished. Don't you see? They'll destroy you too. Everything you worked for, all gone. He turned to her, his face cold, his voice final. Then let it be gone. I'd rather lose everything than lose my soul. Amanda's scream echoed as she buried her face in her hands, her world crumbling around her. Daniel stood then, tall and unshaken for the first time. He turned to me, his hand reaching for mine. Mom, will you stand beside me when I speak? I squeezed his hand, my tears falling freely. Always. That evening, Daniel called for a press conference. The reporters swarmed like vultures, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. The world waited for him to speak, some ready to condemn, others to mock, few to forgive. Daniel stepped up to the podium, his hand trembling as he gripped the microphone. He looked out at the sea of flashing lights and angry faces. Then he looked back at me. I nodded, and with a deep breath he spoke. My name is Daniel Cole, and I have a confession to make. The world went silent. The room was silent except for the rapid clicks of cameras. Daniel's voice trembled at first, but he stood tall, gripping the podium as though it were the only thing keeping him steady. My name is Daniel Cole, he began, his eyes scanning the sea of reporters. And I have a confession to make. For years, I denied the very woman who gave me life, my mother. I turned away from her, shamed her, and chose lies over truth. I was blinded by love, blinded by the glitter of wealth and power. And in that blindness, I betrayed the only person who ever truly stood by me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some reporters scribbled furiously. Others raised their microphones higher, hungry for more. Daniel's voice grew stronger. I will not hide anymore. The truth is this. Amanda Cole, the woman I was engaged to, committed a crime years ago. A hit and run that destroyed an innocent life. It was buried with money and lies, but it has surfaced now. And instead of standing on the side of truth, I stood on the side of deception. I let myself become part of her lies. And for that, I am deeply ashamed. Flashes exploded as reporters shouted over one another. Are you breaking off the engagement? Are you admitting guilt by association? Do you fear legal action? Daniel raised his hand, silencing them. Yes, I am ending the engagement. Yes, I fear legal consequences. But I fear something more. Living a life built on lies. I will not do that anymore. My heart swelled with both pride and pain. He was finally standing in the light, even if it burned. Suddenly, a voice pierced the silence. Liar. All eyes turned. Amanda had pushed through the crowd, her hair disheveled, her makeup streaked. She staggered forward, pointing a trembling finger at Daniel. You're lying. You knew everything. Don't pretend you're innocent now. You helped me hide it. The crowd erupted in chaos. Reporters surged closer, cameras flashing wildly. Daniel's face went pale, but he didn't back down.
No, Amanda.
I didn't know the full truth until now. Yes, I made excuses for you. Yes, I let myself be blinded. But I will not carry your crime anymore. Amanda screamed, her voice raw. You coward. You're throwing me to the wolves to save yourself. Security rushed forward, trying to pull her away, but she fought them, her cries echoing. He's lying. He's just as guilty as me. The press went wild, shouting questions, their voices overlapping into chaos. Daniel stood frozen, his chest heaving. The crowd, the lights, the accusations, they threatened to crush him. He looked at me then, his eyes desperate, silently asking what to do. I stepped forward, pushing past the flashing cameras, past the judgmental stares. I placed a trembling hand on the microphone and spoke, my voice cutting through the chaos. My son is not perfect. He made mistakes. He strayed. He denied me. But don't you dare compare weakness to wickedness. He may have been blinded, but he did not commit Amanda's crime. He did not cripple that boy. He did not bury the truth. That was Amanda, and Amanda alone. The crowd gasped, cameras flashing faster. Amanda's screams grew shriller as she was dragged away. Daniel grabbed my hand at the podium, his tears visible now for the whole world to see. This is my mother, he said, his voice breaking. The woman I once denied. But no more. I stand with her now. Whatever comes next, we will face it together. The press roared with questions, but in that moment it didn't matter. For the first time my son had chosen me. Publicly, openly, without shame. But even as the cameras flashed and the truth finally spilled into the open, I knew the storm wasn't over. Amanda's scream still echoed in my ears. He's just as guilty as me. The question was no longer whether the world would believe Daniel's confession. The question was, would they believe Amanda's accusation? The days that followed were like walking through fire. The press conference had gone viral, spreading like wildfire across every news channel, every social media feed, every living room in America. Everyone had an opinion. Some called Daniel a hero for choosing truth. Others called him a hypocrite for not speaking sooner. And Amanda, well, she had become a national scandal. Her screams at the press conference played on repeat. Her accusations that Daniel was just as guilty. Headlines were brutal. Did he know all along? Amanda Cole speaks out. Fiancé complicit in cover-up? Mother versus mistress. The truth behind the family feud. Daniel sat in my living room night after night, his head in his hands, the weight of the world pressing down on him. Mom, he whispered one evening, his voice hoarse. What if they believe her? What if I lose everything anyway? I placed my hand over his, steady and firm. Then you hold your head high and know you told the truth. You can't control the world, Daniel. But you can control yourself. And you've already taken the hardest step. You came back to the light. A knock came at the door the next morning. When I opened it, my breath caught. It was the young man Amanda had hit years ago, the boy with the limp. He looked older now, hardened by pain, but his eyes were kind. He stepped inside, his gaze falling on Daniel. "I saw your press conference," he said softly. "And I believe you. I know what she did. I was there. And I know you weren't." Daniel's eyes widened, tears pooling. I don't know what to say." The young man gave him a small nod. "Say nothing. Just don't waste this second chance you've been given." With those words, a weight lifted. The truth had a witness. And Amanda's lies could no longer hold power. In the weeks that followed, Amanda's family distanced themselves from her. Her engagement to Daniel was officially broken. The law came knocking, and this time, money couldn't silence it. Amanda was forced to face what she had done. As for Daniel, he lost some friends, yes. He lost opportunities. The shine of his old life dulled. But what he gained was worth more than all of it. He gained his soul back. He gained his mother back. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to me. His face was calmer now, softer, like the boy I once knew had finally returned. "Mom," he said quietly, "I can't change what I did to you. I can't erase the pain I caused when I denied you. But I promise you this. Never again. I'll never be ashamed of you again. From now on, I'll stand by you, always." Tears blurred my vision as I took his hand. "And I'll always stand by you, son. Because love, Real love, doesn't die, even when the world turns its back." To those of you watching this from your homes, remember this: wealth, status, power, they all fade. Lies may give you comfort for a season, but truth always comes knocking. And when it does, you'll have to choose. Will you keep hiding, or will you step into the light? Daniel chose the light. And though the road ahead was not easy, it was real. I am Margaret from Texas, 70 years old. I've told you my story. If you've walked with me this far, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button for more stories like this. And before you go, tell me from which part of the country you are watching. Because maybe, just maybe, my story will reach a mother, a son, or a daughter who needs to hear it. And maybe it will remind them of this simple truth. Family is worth more than gold. And a mother's love never dies. Broken Heart.